All right. So welcome everyone. My name is Will Moss. I'm the CEO of HBCU Connect. Super excited for you all to be joining us here at our 2025 virtual conference and career fair scheduled for the spring. With this session, we're going to be talking about creating a high impact CV or resume and insight for applicants. And our presenter is Dirk Foley, Senior Resident Advisor, Provider Solutions and Development with Providence. So Dirk, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
As they say, I was born ready. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm excited to be here. We're going to talk about resumes and CVs, very important elements to any application. And there are things that you can do that help get you noticed. I'm happy to share those with you. I have been in the healthcare field now in a sort of administrative support role for about 30 years. And I spent 6 years as a healthcare recruiter looking at probably 25 to 50 CVs a day. So I have some preferences, and I will just own up front that some of this may conflict with information you have experienced or read online in terms of how to create these documents. I would say to that end, go with your gut about what you think serves you best, because that's going to be the best way that you can stand in your power in this process. And if you're not getting the results you want, consider trying new strategies. It's always okay to amend these things. I worked for 2 insurance companies. I worked for a health medical school. So a lot of my perspectives come from the healthcare field. That said, I've done my best to try to include formatting tips, tricks, insights that will help everybody with these documents that are so important in the application process. As Will said, I work for Provider Solutions and Development. We are a recruitment firm that cover recruitment in the healthcare physician environment across the nation. My particular role is working with our internal residents and helping these physicians finishing their training move into and meet the job market in a powerful way. They've been focused on learning healthcare and taking care of patients. So sometimes CVs and the application process is really unknown and foreign to them. So we're trying to help them meet those requirements and do so powerfully. So let's talk now about CVs, resumes, and those documents and considerations of same. I started at the 50,000 foot level. And the thing that I want to share is just, I think about this process as employers are gold panning. They are taking a big scoop of whatever field that they're in for, they're looking for an engineer, they're looking for a physician, they're looking for a technical person, and they're swirling those around with their needs and all the applicants that are coming in. And there are things you can do. The only reason I don't like this analogy is it's sort of playing not to lose. You don't want to be the substrate that gets washed back into the river. Your goal, as it says here, is to speak with a person. And there are some things that we'll talk about today that can give you the weight to be that nugget of gold at the bottom that the employer says, this is the one we want to talk to. I heard this probably 15, 20 years ago, that in an initial review, a hiring person will spend maybe 7 to 12 seconds reviewing a resume or a CV. And that's really the first sort is always, is this a person we want to know more about? Or is this person just not a fit for what we're looking for? So again, what you're doing with your resume is getting to the person and being the one that they want to choose and talk to, get an opportunity to tell your story, which is that much more impactful than a 2-dimensional piece of paper. In that regard, formatting matters a lot. I had a visual that came to me. I'm a very visual thinker in my life. And it was a display of how to put information forward for retention. And so it makes a difference. So when you're looking at your resume, particularly on the medical side, much more logic, less flash. You have a little bit more creativity on the resume side, and I'll show some examples here at the end of ones that I like, but you're really focused on your hiring person having readability, and that means the ease of access to that essential information of who you are, what you've done, what your skills are. I like to tell people to use dot points rather than paragraphs, saving your story or your essay for your cover letter, and then make those 3 or 4 dot points at most, and make them unique elements. So if you are doing general data entry in your tech position, that's not as interesting as if you've got certifications in higher level. On the medical side, if you're rooming patients, that is not as exciting as I was on a rotation where I delivered X number of babies. That's far more interesting and skillful. And then there are things you can do. I encourage you to print off any job description to which you're applying, circle those key words. And as you're going through the job requirements, make sure you have your own story, because you want to pair your skills and experience and training with what that job is, making yourself their ideal candidate. So when you're crafting your CV or resume, it's really a summary of who you are professionally. On the medical side, as I said, you have far less creativity than you do on the non-medical side, but you want to put in your education and training, any work experience, skills, certifications, academic achievements, and I see a lot of employers now looking at what have you done any leadership stuff, or what have you done outside of work that you might be passionate about? Certainly, there are other things you add into this. And I see for new graduates or for people entering the work world, 1 to 2 pages is plenty of space. You don't want to overwhelm people with information. I see that sometimes where it's clear that this person is trying too hard to impress me, the employer. So keep it simple, keep it direct. Margins, I like to see 1/2-inch margins, simply because that's printable when you want to print it out, and it also maximizes the usable page. And then a font size, especially for older eyes, of 10 to 12 point. I would also add to that, use a font that is legible. Don't get too fancy or creative with that. Times New Roman, Arial, any of those things work. There is a preferred sequence, especially on the medical side. So you want to start with your name. That is arguably the most important information on the page. That should be slightly larger than the rest of the text. And your contact info. I added in here that I've talked to a lot of people, and I see in some of the examples that I was looking up on the resume side, not including street addresses. So much of our lives nowadays is electronic. You can save a little space in your header by just having a city and state. I've heard hiring managers would like to know where you are geographically, but they don't need to know specifically your street address until later on when they're hiring you. Your personal statement or career objective. Tailor this to individual jobs. Own right now that you will have multiple versions of your resume or CV. Have a master copy that has everything in it, but then when you are applying to individual jobs, you can tailor that. So education, usually in reverse chronology. So the last job you had is first, and then working backwards, or your current job is the first one. Any research and academic work, again, that applies more towards the medical side. Leadership or committee experience. So if you've done things, call those out. This is an opportunity for you to stand in your power, not in an arrogant way, but in a factual way that these are the things that I have done and that I'm proud of. Honors and awards, volunteer and community service. Languages. If you are bi or trilingual, that is an asset to any employer, so call that out. And then a level of proficiency. You don't need to describe, well, I can do well in a restaurant or something like that. Just if you are basic, intermediate, or fluent in that language. I always, as a recruiter, liked to see personal interests on a resume or a CV. It was a great conversation starter. Simple list of I like biking, gardening, family, travel. It can be that easy, but that gives me an entree as a person wanting to talk to you to say, hey, do you have any favorite destinations where you like to travel? And then saving space on your resume document, you can say just a notation at the bottom, which is references are available upon request. And then keep a separate list of names, contact information, so that you can send that when the employer wants to contact those people. We'll talk about references here again in a little bit. So formatting for impact, be consistent. I work in the healthcare field. I see physicians who have been in practice for 10, 12 years, and they've done this particular thing over here and this thing over here. And when I get their CV, it's multiple fonts, multiple sizes, multiple formatting things, and it makes it really tough for me to understand and get through that review. So you don't want that to be you. Use a consistent font, spacing, format, placement of. So if you have your date ranges of when you worked at an employer on the left margin, keep them consistent throughout that document. Managing the white space, again, you don't want to overwhelm someone's eye by trying to, over impress them or try too hard. So leave a little white space in between. Delineating your sections if you have an all caps section title. And again, we'll look at some of this in a little bit. You don't need to have lines across the page. Personal preference, this is Dirk's preference. I don't like lines across the page. It blocks my eye from traveling down. You want to keep your page breaks clean. So they say widows and orphans. So if you have a section that starts and you have one line to something, and then it continues on the next page, just move that whole section to the next page. Far cleaner. And then sending, when you're making applications, send a PDF version. That ensures that nobody is adjusting or changing that document. And as you make that conversion from word processing software into PDF, that make sure your formatting stays the same, because sometimes that can get changed. And I will put all of you on notice, there is absolutely no reason for you to have any spelling errors in your resumes or CVs. I still see medical CVs with errors in them. And I'm like, you're a medical professional, you're a trained physician, you need to do better. So I will also say, and I think this is on my next slide, show your CV to other people. I get too close to the stuff I work on. So have somebody else, have one of your mentors, have one of your references, have a family member review the CV, because sometimes they can see things that you are like, it's so close that you didn't even see it. Using a professional email, I was talking with a fellow recruiter about this yesterday, and I've seen some wacky emails come across, and it's just not a great first professional impression to have kitty boots needs more fun as an email. So it's easy enough to go to Yahoo, go to Gmail, create a new account, and have that be dedicated to your job search. And then make sure you check that inbox on a timely basis. There was a time when photos were a part of CVs. I used to see that a lot on CVs or resumes. That time has passed. So you can remove the photo that you might have on there. I talked about street address before. I talked about having your document reviewed by other people. That's super helpful. And I've also mentioned having a master copy. So absolutely everything that you can think of that's related to your professional development goes in that master copy. And then when you're applying to AP Electronics or whatever the location is, Our Lady of the Swamps Hospital in upstate New York, I just made that place up, you can make a copy of that master and then tailor that new CV for that specific job, calling out individual experiences that best match what they're looking for, using keywords from the job description into your resume CV. And what that does is when AI is looking for best match applicants, it will grab the ones that talk and match what we do. So you can circle those keywords again with the job description and pepper those into your resume. Great advantage to get through that AI and to the human being, which is the one you want to be talking to. Looking now at examples, I'll start with a CV, just going over. So we've got our half-inch margins, contact information up here, slightly increased name at the top, a line underneath, creating a formal header to the document. In CVs, the formatting is a little bit more rigid than resumes. We'll look at 2 resumes here next. But again, we've got consistent placement of date ranges over here. So I know where I'm looking to find continuity to this person's career. Reverse chronological order, employment experiences, few specific dot points that are, noteworthy to call out, clean page break at the bottom. And again, this is a practicing physician, but it's really a page and 3/4. So you can do this efficiently. And of course, the notation at the bottom of references available upon request. Looking next, I found a couple of examples of resumes that I liked. This one using the whole page. Again, you could probably tell the one thing I didn't like about this is the lines across the page, but given the fact that it's more centrally oriented, I think it flows well. You've got a name up top and all the contact information, making sure all of that is consistent. This person is in Boston. You have a LinkedIn opportunity. I'm not talking about LinkedIn today, but that's a great thing to have people know more about you, is to have your LinkedIn profile on your resume, as well as the professional email. A very specific summary, professional summary. Again, that's something you need to tailor to each job that you're talking about. And in this person called out key skills. Again, helpful for employers to know that you're trained in XYZ, these types of modalities. You use Microsoft suites, etc. So that's one option here. The other, this again gets a little bit more creative in terms of, I don't like these kinds of templates for medical CVs. I'll just say that up front. I think there's need for medical staff and medical professionals to be a little bit less constrained. Your resume / CV is a living document. It's going to change, as Will said. It will change with the times. It will change with the jobs. So you want your template, if you're using one, to be really flexible and to be able to support you in presenting the key information to employers in an effective way. Again, I liked just how this was laid out. It's got skills over here, courses, passions. Anyways, I liked all those things about these. You will find a myriad of templates online that you can use and fill information in. I encourage you to try 3 or 4 different styles and see which one your mentors or your references like. And let's talk about references here a little bit, because these are important people to have on your side. You want to have enough relationship duration that these people can speak knowledgeably about you professionally and on your behalf. As I said, the duration of association equals their depth of knowledge. So when I am calling them as the employer about you, they're going to be able to give me stories, examples, and qualities about you that give me additional perspectives on you as the candidate. So identifying those people early, you probably have these folks in your life already. You can begin, quote unquote, grooming them, building those relationships to be able to make an ask of them. Good references can be program directors, bosses, colleagues. On the medical side, clinical faculty are used a lot. If you've got a professor who was on your side, you did some coursework for, they can speak on your behalf. Research project leads or committee leads. So if you've done some volunteerism, maybe the head of that organization that knows you and your contributions. can speak on your behalf. You want to make an ask of a reference in a clear, concise way. Are you willing or able, do you feel comfortable being a positive reference for me as I make job applications? And get a definite yes from these people. The worst case scenario is someone says, well, I suppose I could do that. That's not the person who's going to serve you best. You want someone who says, absolutely, I would love to do that. And then you can talk with them about what that means. How much time is going to be expected? When will you be making application? When can they expect things so that they can manage my phone call, the employer, to them in a reasonable way? Managing the relationship is simply keeping them informed of the work you're doing, the applications you're making, and when they can expect to be engaged by employers. Questions about any references? I went through all of that really, really quickly, so I think we can move to questions right now. On the bottom of this slide is my email. If you have specific questions or things that weren't clear, jot that down, and please feel free to reach out and ask a question. I'm not sure if there were questions, Will, in the chat.
So what I would like to invite folks to do is drop your, or actually use the raise hand feature. Tyler, I see you have a question. Did you want to come off of mute and ask your question?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Quick question is not really a big one. So in general, would you say that a CV or a resume would be better when applying for jobs? Or are they just pretty much the same thing?
I forgot to create a definition, Tyler. I'm sorry about that. CVs are specific to the medical profession. It's a curriculum vitae, and it's a resume for physicians and medical professionals. So resumes are non-medical folks.
All right.
So if you are not a physician or a nurse practitioner, you will have a resume for yourself.
Okay, I understand. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing lots of hands. This is great.
Yep, hands are coming up. So is it Shani or Shani Gibson?
Shani, thank you for having.
Hi, Shani.
Thank you for having this talk and putting this together.
Sure.
My question is, I've been in the field for 17, 18 years in tech, and before I used to have a 2-page resume, and now I've shot it down to one and just put my LinkedIn. How do I still show all of my background without overloading the recruiters or the hiring managers? And I've tried to use AI a little bit to ensure that I can try to tailor every resume, but is there anything else I could do? Because it's necessary, but it's also taxing to balance it all. Because I don't want to overwhelm you guys, and you guys see a lot of resumes.
Yeah, no, it's a great question because you don't want to overwhelm people, and there's no real right way of knowing how much information does a person need. What I say to medical professionals, and like residents, graduating residents, if they go beyond 2 pages, oftentimes it's because they have extensive research and publication aspects. And I say that, and you can do this in any section, be able to list on your resume that you're sending to that specific job, those key and essential things that that job is asking for or looking for. And then at the bottom of that section, have a notation that says additional experiences available upon request, meaning that here's some, but not all, right? And then as you go into your interviews and as you're talking with folks, if they're asking for those things, be able to provide the additional thing. Maybe you send along the master CV that has everything on it. Hope that answers your question.
That is perfect. I didn't even think about that. So thank you so much.
I mean, some folks who have extensive, I've seen CVs that are 50, 60 pages long because this person has been engaged in so many presentations, publications. And I encourage them to distill it down to 1 to 2 pages for your CV, and then have an academic prospectus. So this is basically other experiences that I've done.
Awesome. Dorcas, you had a question?
Yes, hello, how are you? I
Good.
actually had a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question actually kind of revolved around that same thing. I was just kind of wondering when you have like 20 years of experience in something, sometimes I've been asked to put all 20 years on a resume and send it, and then other times not. So how far back would you say is a reasonable time period to place on a resume?
Two frames here. One, if you have an experience that matches the job requirement and it was 10 years ago, I would put that on there because that's the experience that they're looking for. Likewise, if you have more experience in those things, as I was saying to the last question, tailor those experiences. I don't know if there's a magic bullet that says, go back 10 years or go back 12 years. I would say of your 20 years of experience, pull the things that are most relevant to that job you're applying for. And then at the bottom, you can say additional work experiences available upon request. That's how I would make that application.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Dominique.
Hi there. My quick question is, in reference to my resume, is it best to put my promotions on the resume, or how should I go about that? As far as one company goes, and I've of course moved into another position.
Yeah, I would say that might be one of your key dot points to be able to say, I started with the company in this time and was promoted to this new role in X amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I would definitely have that on there because that says that company is moving you up. You have earned new distinction.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Royce, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you all for your time today. I'm Royce Robinson. I'm a 2023 graduate from Grambling State University with my degree in mass communication. You kind of answered my question a little bit. I feel like some of the other questions kind of sitting on my mind. I just wanted to clarify. You do feel like that for your resume, it should be 1 page, correct? Or is it okay to be 2 pages? For my case, I kind of feel like it wasn't until I changed my resume up and it was 2 pages when I actually started getting feedback as far as getting interviews and things like that. So I just kind of wanted your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think I would say generally 1 to 2 pages, front and back, is the goal. They can be longer. I mean, if you've been in business for 20 years and have multiple locations that you've worked, which is not a bad thing, then your CV may be 4 pages. But I would aim for 1 to 2, like a front and back of a single page.
So with you saying that as well, as far as passing a physical copy, instead of bringing 2 pages, have it front and back, like, is what you're saying?
I just think 1 page is less easy to lose.
Okay.
And an employer is talking to a number of different people. If you have all your information on 1 sheet with your name on it, that's going to be easier than like having to staple something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah. Next question, Michaela Ross. Did you want to ask your question?
Hi, yes, good afternoon. Hi, Dirk.
Hi, Michaela.
So a couple of the other people have already answered a few of the questions that I had, but just being specific, I recently lost my job, so I've been getting advice from different people on what improvements to make. And so I graduated from college in 2005, and I have that information on my resume, my graduation date. I've had a couple of people say not to have the graduation date because then it gives the recruiter your age information. So do you think that that's necessary to have my graduation date or removed, or just say that I completed my degree on, or?
Yeah, completed degree. I would have the date. Because again, that's discoverable information for the employer.
Mhm.
I'm thinking age discrimination shouldn't be a thing in the workplace. So I know
Right. I mean, it
said
should
that through
not.
my
But I've gotten that information, as well as they've said remove references. They've said cut DAC, like job experience for anything more than 10 years isn't necessary. So I mean, it's kind of conflicting information. So I appreciate you giving your
yeah.
viewpoint on that.
I mean, it is a moving target, Michaela, and it's not static in anything, which is why I started by saying, as your resume sits in front of you, go with your gut about what you think is best. If you aren't getting responses from employers with those dates on there, consider removing that or laying it out a different way. As I said before, if you've got good experience, even if it was 10 years ago, that's still experience in that field. So if it matches the job description and what they're looking for, I would have it on there.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions.
Richard, did you want to ask your question next?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Dirk, for your advice on resumes.
Sure.
I have questions about cover letters, like how useful they are in the application process, as well as how to make it make cover letters more than just like a rehash of the resume.
Yeah. Cover letters, I'm glad you brought this up, because cover letters, I think, are important. I tell all the residents I talk to, if only for the exercise of you putting down in words in a cogent, concise way who you are, what you're looking for, what skills you have, and how they match the job that you're applying for. It allows me, the employer, an additional dimension into you. It says, my colleagues say these things about me, and you're looking for this. These are the experiences that I've done that, fill that check that box, that say I can do the kind of job you're after. I may or may not be able to get that from what I see on your resume. So it gives you an opportunity to tell a little bit more of your story. As a recruiter, I read every cover letter because it helped me understand the thinking, the passion, the drive of that applicant. And that's helpful to me if I want to match your training and skills with the right job.
Excellent. All right. Appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Starasia?
Yes, it's Starasia. Hi, Dirk. I really
Hi.
appreciate your presentation and how concise it was. Also, in particular, mentioning that additional information is available upon request. So I have a question regarding specifically like with keywords and highlighting transferable experience when pivoting industries, what you would recommend for that. For example, I have a in-depth background in data analysis, working specifically in the tech and marketing sector, and am re-entering nonprofit, but like from the technical side. And so yeah, I just wanted to know if you had any tips on, tailoring resumes specifically to highlight transferable skills, and then if the slide deck that you presented today would be available for us.
Three things came up. One, I don't know if I'm the expert on that particular, like transitioning from one into the other. I guess if I put myself in your shoes, Starasia, I would be inclined to utilize, and this is great because it comes across on Richard's question about cover letters, to tell your story about how you did tech and why you're motivated and moving into the nonprofit sector, and how you foresee yourself applying your skills in tech in the commercial side to the nonprofit sector. And you can make that link in a story. with regards to slides, I think I can get these to HBCU. My email is down there, so if you'd like to have these, I would say send me an email and I can send you the PDF version of them. I don't have any qualms about that at all. Is that open? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And that is
Sure.
basically also what I was leaning towards. Because in my cover letter, I talk about like my relationship to um the nonprofit sector and how it applies to tech. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Outstanding. Yeah, great. Best of luck.
Next question, Teddy, did you want to ask a question?
Question, please.
Yes, I do. How you doing today?
Good, Teddy. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you again for the presentation.
Absolutely.
Going back to the cover letters, I know you said they're mainly for medical departments. Are you sure? Is there any times that there's times that different like data analysts and engineer technology they ask for them too? Should we still
Yeah,
work?
forgive me if I misspoke or
Uh-huh.
if you heard me saying that, because cover letters are important for any discipline.
Right. Okay. I just
So
wanted to
yeah,
know.
yeah, no, if they are asking for a cover letter, write one. And there are articles all over the place about how to write effective cover letters.
Right.
I was going to say, we were talking about this yesterday. If you have AI write your cover letter for you, saying match my skills with this job, make sure you go back and tweak it and put your own voice in there. I understand that AI now has a humanizing filter that you can have it go back and use more human language. And I'm just like, AI is crazy.
Right.
But no, if they're asking for a cover letter in any discipline, you need to provide that document. And so you
Right.
should be telling your story. It's a great advantage.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate the question. Mark J, did you want to ask a question?
I certainly did. Hey, thank you, Dirk, for your questions. My question is on the ATS system, and what do you recommend? What type of resume to pass through that? Because that seems to be an Achilles heel that hits sometimes when how do you match the keywords? Like, for instance, if the formatting is wrong, it'll kick it out. And I know there are multiple ATS systems out there, and each employer uses a different one, but can you elaborate a little bit? And question number two, sub two, is back to the cover letter. Some employers read them, some people don't. Is this a good suggestion to add the cover letter to the end of the resume or something else like that, or put it at the top or at the bottom of it to sneak it in just in case? Because some online platforms ask for it, some don't. But what percentage of it does actually happen? So I'm gonna let you answer that.
And Mark, correct me, ATS stands for?
Automatic systems that they screen, that companies use to screen resumes. So though somebody sends a resume, if you try to apply for something, it goes through it and tries to match the characteristics of the job and then goes back and you put the right letters in there and all, et cetera. So
I talk about this with residents a lot because when I was young and applying for my first jobs, I would fill out a paper application and sit down and talk with Mark, the manager of the place where I wanted to work, and he would, interview me on the spot, and it was very human. We've gone online. It's largely electronic nowadays, and ATS, it's a tough window to get through. It eliminates a lot of that human factor. I remember applying to a job that I was recommended for by someone in the company that I was applying to, and my application, just like you were saying, got kicked out. It said, nope, you're not qualified. And I went back to that person and said, here's what your electronics said to me. And they were like, what? And they went in and, hand carried my information to the person who eventually interviewed me. So you make a good point in terms of how do we put ourselves into that electronic system in a way that on the other side, the employer knows who we are, what we're about, the skills we have. And again, I'm sorry to say that I don't know if there's a magic bullet. So I do think if they're asking you to upload your resume and there isn't an option to add a cover letter, include your cover letter as a part of your resume. That's a great strategy to allow you that little extra story. Again, hoping that it doesn't get kicked out as, what's this doing in here? This doesn't look like a resume to me, which I can see a computer doing. But if that's, the sum total of what you upload, which is your cover letter and front and back of your resume, that gives me on the other side the opportunity to know more about you in that process. I hope that answered your question there.
It did. It did. Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
I mean, it's a tough challenge because removing that human factor, computers are computers and they don't necessarily have that distinction.
All right, appreciate the question. I see we got a lot of hands up, so I'm going to recommend sort of a rapid fire on asking the questions. So, Tasia, if you'd like to ask your question next.
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for your time and expressing. My thing is that I've spent 10 years in one industry, so my resume reflects one sort of sector, but I'm now in a transition and wanting to go into a different industry. So type of like advice that we could use with if you're sectioned off in one industry and you're wanting to transition into something different. So for example, I was a news producer for a number of years, and now I want to move into PR and marketing and stuff. But all my background, every job I've ever worked in the last 10 years has been at a television station. So kind of
Sure.
how to work with that.
I would, you could probably find what the relevant skills are for the industry that you want to move into, create linkages between what you've done and how it might apply to that. I would also say, and we didn't talk about networking here, take the leaders and the people you know in that new industry out to coffee. Talk with them about how to make that transition. Who else can I be talking to is always the end question for those conversations. And gather information. I mean, for a cup of coffee, you can get insights about how to best represent yourself coming from 10 years here, applying those skills in the new place. And in your cover letter, you want to be able to tell future employers why it is you're making that change. What's compelling you in that new direction?
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for the question. Kareem, do you have a quick question?
Quick question. I'm in sales. How you doing, Dirk, by the way? I'm in sales.
I'm great, Kareem. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. And I just wanted to know if you have a little expertise in sales resumes. And I recently condensed it from a 2-pager to a 1-pager. I'm following your advice with the CV, but any extra tips, any way to make ours different, or do you see anything different with sales resumes as compared to other resumes? And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Kareem, I don't look at sales resumes as a rule. So this is, again, not necessarily a place where I'm an expert. I would say you can do a simple Google search for high impact sales resumes and see what comes back.
Gotcha. Understood. Thank you.
Appreciate the question. Lita, did you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, my question was, I work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I am, obviously considering a lot of options right now with the climate right now. And I've had HR exposure in working with TA and HRBPs and culture and engagement. But how do I, since I'm trying to make the transition, how can I really amplify my resume to reflect that so it's not, oh, she's DEI, no, we're not gonna, even though they shouldn't do that, but it happens. So I'm just curious to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, no, I think there are a lot of really good elements of DEI work that are applicable to TA and HR. So, because you're working with people, you're working with building people up, you're working with creating broader equitable communities, you're helping people understand others in better ways. So on the TA side, you're doing a lot of that same work. And similar to other questions, I would be talking with folks in TA and HR that and being able to ask that same question of those people. Like, do you have folks come from DEI into your organization and do this kind of work, how best to build a road for myself from here to there.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Tawana Pryor.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Dirk, for your advice.
My
My
pleasure.
question is, can you use a letter of recommendation as a reference?
You can. And I would say if you have letters of recommendation, I didn't even mention those, Tawana. Thank you for bringing that in. That's basically a physical representation of that reference. And some applications do ask for letters of recommendation, or you can use those as, bolster to your application. That employer may eventually want to talk to that reference or that person who wrote that letter of recommendation. So if you have that letter, make sure that that person knows, are you open to having an employer contact you in addition to writing this nice letter for me?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All righty. Next, T. Passmore.
Hi, Tiffany. Dirk, thank you for the information you presented today. I received my role at Microsoft working with HBCU Connect. And so I wanted to ask your opinion or advice on when candidates are attending job fairs. There's a lot of concern around like PII, like keeping a candidate's information private so they may not gather the actual resume. So what, I guess, like high points would you suggest that a candidate advertise or, put in their elevator speech when they're going to these job fairs and trying to come across as like a well-qualified candidate when they can't actually just leave their resume with someone?
Thank you for bringing in, because I was just thinking about the elevator pitch. I talk about that a lot. That's a little bit of a dated moniker, but for those of you who don't know, the elevator pitch is your intro, and the premise is you're in an elevator lobby with the CEO of the company you want to work for standing next to you, and you have between floor 1 and floor 5 to hook that person in a way that says, hey, here's my business card. We should be talking more. Call my secretary and let's set up a meeting. In terms of how privacy works in this, I think it's up to every applicant to share the information and details that are comfortable for them to share. Then the employer or that person receiving that information is also under auspices to keep that information confidential. So I would say share what you're willing to share with those people. If I'm understanding, Tiffany, your question, but again, in your elevator speech, you can give people a sense of, yourself without being too, what's the word I'm looking for?
Revealing.
Revealing. Great word. Thank you.
All right. So we're just about out of time. I do see a few more questions up. So I'm going to ask that you drop those questions in the chat. And that way we can share with the team at Providence and with Dirk as well. So appreciate you. Dirk,
you can also send me direct emails. I'm not opposed. So
I took down the slides, so they might not be able to see your.
Oh, okay.
But if you want to reshare that or drop it in the chat, either way is good. Appreciate that. But to our candidates, we have one more session at 4. Actually, I have 2 more sessions. One at 4 o'clock, one at 5 o'clock to close things out. But our 4 o'clock session is on, let's see here, Power and Policy, Launching Your Career in Advocacy and Government. So that'll be our next session. I'll drop the link in the chat as well. But great session, Dirk. Thank you for taking the time out to share. We really appreciate it. But
my pleasure.
Any last words for our candidates before we go?
I would say thank you for attending. I hope this was useful to you. Google is a great thing for exploring things, but I hope I've opened your eyes to options of how to network, and I wish you all success in your job search.
Thank you, Dirk.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of our attendees as well. Appreciate you.